We have a super special guest coming up. I'm super excited to get her up here. She is very well known in the industry as a professional. She's been in the Medicare space for over 15 years, has personally helped thousands of beneficiaries over that time. She is a regular contributor and writer to numerous publications, writing about Medicare, writing about Medigap policy. She's a member of the Forbes Finance Council. She's also the former president of the Fort Worth chapter of Nahu, and even sat on the Texas State Board of Nahu for several years. She is an outstanding example of leadership in this business and one of the best stewards I've ever seen in the business. I'm super excited to bring her up here. She's the author of 10 Costly Mistakes in Medicare That You Cannot Afford to Make. And she is the founding partner of the behemoth that is known as Boomer Benefits. Please give me a lovely, warm welcome for Miss Danielle Kunkle Roberts.
So Danielle, we obviously wanted to have you here because Boomer Benefits is from an agency perspective, it's actually agency, not FMO, marketing organization, probably one of the pinnacles of quality, high volume business in the Medicare space.
Thank you.
And so you guys have done a really, really good job. So I just have to ask some questions. And so Danielle was the first one to send me some awesome notes and stuff about her trajectory and career, and it was all really awesome. And so I wrote down about 17 words from that I'm going to try to use to guide this. Okay, but number one, question that came up, and so you have to answer this, or you have to go for it, is talking about SEO, or organic search, because you guys have been for probably close to a decade almost been the leader in search engine results for Medicare. And so Bob actually helped me with this question. When we were prepping for his speech, I did ask him some questions. And one of the questions, the way he phrased it, I believe, was, when did you start thinking that SEO was not a secondary or tertiary initiative in marketing, but became the forefront that you were going to invest full speed ahead into that side of things?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, back when we were growing our agency, we didn't have things like this. So kudos to you for putting this together.
Well, I can't do it without you guys. Just like I told Bob, for real, everybody it's very humbling that you put it together, and so many high level people want to be a part of it. It's pretty awesome. So.
Yeah, and people can come together and share ideas. But we didn't have any of that. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have Amazon. We wrote out of rate books. It was a totally different world back then. But I had done a little bit of SEO work for someone I dated in the past that was a disc jockey. We ranked his site in Fort Worth and got him business that way. And so one of the first carrier trips that we won or qualified for was with Sentinel Security Life, and it was at the Arizona Biltmore. And this was probably back in 2007, 8, or 9, something like that.
Okay.
And we do a lot of business with Precision Senior Marketing. Greg Scovey is our rep. Absolutely love him. And the Vanderberg brothers have always treated us very, very well. And at that event, I got talking to Josh Vanderberg, and he said, do you know anything about SEO? And I was like, well, as a matter of fact, I do. And we probably sat and talked there for 3 hours. And he told me all about, you should write articles and post them on Unique Article Wizard. And there's this thing called the Backlink Battle Plan. And back then, you could just put out all the black hat stuff and rank immediately. And so we just got into it early, and were able to maintain a lead organically for a long time.
Yeah.
But I'll also tell you, in recent years, that has we actually invest less in that, and we don't work so hard to stay at the top, because there are so many wrong ways to go about getting good rankings in Google. And we often will just sit back and we watch, and we can see agencies who are posting things and then getting to the top level, and we know that they're going to tank as soon as Google rolls out another algorithm. My friend Russell Noga in Austin likes to say that Google is Satan.
Yeah.
And when they find that you mess something up or you game the system, eventually they'll knock you down. And so there's always this question about what's the right thing to do and what is Google going to approve of and what will they not.
Yeah.
And it's actually a lot easier now to go and put stuff out on social and get business for your agency being a real person on camera than it is to always be maintaining that spot. So we were just lucky that we were in early and we took the time to work on it. And so we've maintained some good organic rank, but I think you can get business lots of other ways that are less of a hurdle.
Yeah, for us, like SEO is just one of those ongoing initiatives, and we do well local, that sort of thing, and it's growing, but it's a very expensive investment, and so like for most people, especially early on, like it's not something that I would want to go straight into. So I have agents that are newer or maybe in that intermediate level where you start asking, well, what are you spending your time on? And they'll say, well, my website and SEO and all that. And I'm like, it's probably a waste. And I hate to say it like that, but you can spend so much time on that long-term, concept. And even Kentu, who I've mentioned a lot, had told me, like, he's like, I don't know anything about SEO anymore. And I've, would have considered him like a front runner in it back in the day. And he's like, it's changed so much. Like it's, way different. And
it's so expensive.
It's so
I would
expensive.
agree. It's not the right thing to put all your money in, especially if you're new to the business and just trying to get off the ground.
Right.
Because you will invest millions of dollars into that over the years. And then Google could come along and slap you down and say, we don't like this or we don't like that.
Yeah.
So I agree that other methods work a lot better.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So another thing that came up when we were talking about you guys is your team size. How big is your team right now?
We are 103.
103 team members. Now, what portion of that is agent force right now?
So I think we have about 45 or 50 sales agents, and then maybe 30 something client service team.
Yeah.
And then
so you guys are also
marketing and
high
IT.
service oriented there. So
yeah. Yeah. I really agree with what Beish was saying about getting the clients and persistency. We hear from the carriers all the time that they love our persistency. And that's because we spend an enormous amount of money in payroll, keeping those clients on the books. We did that when we were small, but also now today, sometimes when I'm in these team meetings and the managers tell me something that we accomplished for a client, it's absolutely stunning. And we actually track all of the money that we save them. So we have a ticker that counts. And every quarter we can go back and say how much we've saved them. And we use that in our marketing. And these girls, they know medical coding. They've learned back-end Medicare stuff that was way beyond anything I ever did. But we continue to foster that because you do increase that lifetime value of your client if you get them on the books.
Yeah.
And you do that by being a real person a lot better than just having a ranking on Google. What people in this generation are looking for is authenticity. And I think you can do that best on video, even on the blog posts. You can get that out there, so you choose your medium. And then you follow that up with what you say that you are going to do, which is when there's a problem, you call us and we're going to handle it. And that is one of the problems when you have Wall Street coming in and buying some of these agencies. For people like us, I know for Dave and I, it's really important that we don't sell and somebody comes in and slashes the service team, because it would, first of all, affect our employees, which would be awful, but we don't want to ever fall down on this commitment that we've made to the clients. And so this is why my brother always says, we'll probably never sell, and we'll see.
Yeah. Well, that skips down, but somebody did tell me, they said, where, they had a two-part question. Where's the company in 3 years kind of concept, but then why not sell? And that's part of it.
For sure.
Is there any other reason, and I've heard people say that selling your business, and I could see this, is like sending a kid off to college. Somebody told me that. And I mean, do you have other things in your head, like the reason why you wouldn't want to sell? Because obviously you guys could cash in and, ride off into the sunset. Actually, whoever bought you'd want to keep you around because they couldn't run it without you for a long time, if ever. But are there any other reasons that you think in your head why you just want to keep doing what you're doing?
Well, a lot of it has to do with my brother. Every time we set a goal for what we want to sell, then like a month later, there's a couple of zeros at the end of that. And he keeps driving that forward. And the business is really his life.
Yeah.
He just puts his heart and soul into it. And he doesn't know he can't imagine what he'll do if we were actually sell the business.
Yeah.
But then there are days where an HR issue comes in and you're solving a parking lot dispute or some other bullshit like that. And he will come in and be like, it's the twilight zone in here, and this just might be the day that we're selling.
Yeah.
So you just never know when that tipping point is going to come.
Yeah.
But for sure that the commitment to the customer and the employees is the main reason why we haven't looked just yet.
Well, I've met David a few times, and I can see that about him. I don't know what else he would do either. So, but when and that's another concept we kept going back to was a lot of times we hear questions about how spouses get along in business and things like that. But you're probably one of the few that I know is running it with your brother, and I'm sure that doesn't come without its challenges. But how do you continue to get through that? Because there's probably people out here that have business partners, maybe related, maybe not, and sometimes the smallest challenge will make them give up on that and start over, and then be like, never take on a business partner, never do that. But how can you, for most of those issues they have, you could probably work around them and grow. What's something that you guys have done to keep that continuity going and that vision? Or you guys just love each other completely and never get into any arguments?
He's been blowing up my phone for the last hour about how lazy the salespeople are and their order takers and what can we do to motivate them. And I'm like, dude, I'm at a conference and I'm about to go on stage. Can we talk about this tomorrow? So there are days, like some days you just want to punch them in the throat, right? You're going to work with a family member. You're like, I'm going to kill you today. And my friends all know this. They know how he is. And there are days when it's definitely difficult. But I don't know if a lot of people know this, but when I first started the agency, I actually formed the agency with 2 other partners. And I did this because I was a brand new entrepreneur and I was unsure of myself. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do this. And it made sense that I would just partner up with 2 other new people and we'll go 3 heads are better than 1. And that was definitely not the case.
Yeah.
So I quickly found out that while I was going around to industrial business parks and front door cold calling businesses to try to sell them group insurance, the one partner was working on her accounting business, which she did part-time, and the other partner was missing in action. And we all had different work ethics, and we also had very different views about investing money back into the business. And so at the end of every month, after I'm doing all these hard sales, I would come back and, let's say there's $1,000 in the kitty. They want to split it up 3 ways and leave $1 in the account and nothing to invest. So I could quickly see that if I kept doing this, I was going to work my tail off and always be giving away 2/3 of what I brought in with partners that were great people. There's nothing, I'm not trying to bash them in any way, but they had different work ethic than me and they had a different investment mindset into what you put into the business. And I'm willing to live on peanut butter and ramen noodles to make my business grow. But I don't want to be cold calling forever. We wanted to get to a point where we had enough income to buy leads and go that way. So then I ran the business by myself for a while. And I finally, just one day I was thinking about my brother and how we were always entrepreneurial kids. And we always had these schemes like selling earthworms to fishermen for 50 cents to make money to go to McDonald's next weekend. Or we would wash cars in the neighborhood or mow lawns. And we were always entrepreneurial kids. And I'm like, well, that's the person that has the right work ethic. He has the same work ethic I do. And he's a finance major. So I want to do sales and marketing. If he just were to come in here and run the business side, I think this would be really good. And so I called him and told him about it, and he came and joined, and here we are today. And so even when you do have those days where you don't agree about something, because of the family bond, you can have an argument in the morning and then be like, hey, where do you want to go for lunch?
Yeah.
And that's one good thing that has really worked for us over the years, is just knowing that, questioning the partnership isn't really an option, and it's worked out well for us.
Well, my brother's working for me now, and I mean, I had an argument with him the other day, and then like later on, it's different with him. Like I call it, at first I'm quicker to argue with him, but I'm faster to want to like fix it and just be like, hey, I love you, everything's fine,
For sure.
don't worry about it. Let's do the compliment sandwich pep talk thing, and get back on the right track. And everybody that is here will tell you I'm rougher on my brother than any of them, and
I believe
not
it.
necessarily that he's always as deserving of it, but it's more of like, maybe an expectation or something like that. And he's 6 years younger than me. How you and
Speak
David?
freely. We're 6 years as well.
Okay,
5.5.
cool. And you're 6 years older than him?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so very, yeah. Sometimes he does deserve it. If he's in here, he'll tell you. He does.
Yeah.
But it's kept him on track, and he's come a long way. I'm very proud of him. And I'm sure you are. So your brother, when you brought him in, was he just coming out of college, or what was?
No, he was selling mortgages over the phone for Quicken Loans, Rock Financial Mortgage in Michigan,
Yeah.
working 90 hours a week, making 350, 400,000 a year.
Okay.
Miserable
Miserable.
because of the hours that you had to put in and no daylight. And I was like, why don't you come do this with me?
Yeah.
I'm making $2,600 a month right now. I'll give you 1,300.
Yeah.
That wasn't very motivating. Um, but he
Well,
could see the potential, and of course, it's paid off.
and he still works more than that, probably more
Yes.
than 90 hours a week. But now he has some sort of vested interest and loves what he
That's right.
does. So, we talked when we were at the Capital Conference
Mhm.
for Nahu, National Association of Health Underwriters. We're going to change the name. I've actually been trying to make it the National Association of Medicare Agents, NAMA, but they're not liking
buying
that.
that.
So, but no, we're up there and we were talking about call centers a lot, and there's, we were talking about the word call center, the term call center, and how I didn't really like referring to what some of my friends have that are virtual telesales offices. Even mine can be, we're 70% over the phone now, and I don't like the term call center being used to be a band-aid for everyone, because there are virtual agencies or some other term that I could use that do business telephonically but have a ratio like 30 to 45 service to agent, right? So that's I just don't think some of these other ones that are given the worst name for call centers have that level of service connected to them. It's more of an acquire and abandon. I think that's what I call them, the double A call center. But we were having a lot of conversation about that, and we're talking about how Nahu could be, an avenue for us to grow our collective bargaining, I guess, like our little independent lobbyist group, for good. So, and you've been in Nahu, and you were the reason I joined Nahu, and I actually joined it not for the reason that I like being part of it now. Originally, you said in some interview that you joined Nahu early on, and it really was beneficial to you in a networking way to get Medicare referrals from group agents, things like that. So I joined it like that, selfishly, like I'm going to go in there and get some referrals.
We'll take your membership. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so, but when I went in and started building relationships and going to Capital Con changed my entire
Yeah.
view of it. But what are the different things that an organization like Nahu, which you've been pretty involved in, has done for your business, but then also your vision for the industry?
Yeah. So I like the distinction you just made about the call centers, because I think there's different types. The sort of call center that I run and some of my Clearwater friends run, it's basically the same thing that smaller agencies are doing, but just with more people. We aren't reading off of scripts, and we don't have Joe Namath on TV plugging our products. And those are where a lot of the complaints are coming from. So I sit on the National Medicare Advisory Board for Nahu, and we have an opportunity to sit at the table with CMS every year. We have good relationships through our lobbyists in Washington, and we are able to take those issues and work for things that benefit both the consumer and the agent. For example, I don't know if some of you are aware, but we used to have the Medicare Advantage OEP from January 1st to March 31st, and then the Affordable Care Act came along and wiped that out. And it took years of lobbying, but Nahu was very instrumental in getting that back, which creates that chance for the consumer to fix something they did wrong in the AEP, but also gives us a whole extra 3 months of good selling activity. And that was really, really important. Right now, we are lobbying for a Part D OEP so that they would be able to make a one-time drug switch as well. Yep. We're working on HSAs, trying to lobby that you should be able to contribute to an HSA and also have Medicare Part A if you're still working, and making COBRA creditable coverage the way it is, just as if it were active insurance.
Yeah.
So I'm very passionate about this, and I know you are too. The $35 a month or something that you would pay to be in Nahu is so worth us achieving those goals for our industry. And I never understand why everyone isn't a member, because that organization has just changed my life. When I was a brand new agent, I went to an association event, and we're talking, I was making nothing back then, and spending $30 or $40 a month on a membership was a big deal. But I wanted to plug in somewhere in my industry association rather than like a chamber of commerce. I wanted to put something into the industry. And when I went in there, the Fort Worth chapter is a big chapter. It's very active. And there were probably over 100 people in that meeting. And I noticed up in the front, there was this table with, I would call the cool kids. And I'm in the back, such an introvert and really nervous about even being there. But I noticed how much fun they were all having, the ones that were on the board in the industry. And I was like, I really want to be a part of that. That would be so fun. And so at the end of the lunch, I just went up to the president and said, hey, I'm a brand new member. Do you have any open board positions I could help you with? And if you don't know this, when you're the president of a chapter like that, if a board position is open, you do the president's job and that job. So immediately I was put into membership retention and I was on the board the next month. And I got in as involved as I could. There was not a lot of other Medicare agents. So I used my position as the membership retention person to call on people and make phone calls to them and get to know them and take them to lunch and work that whole networking angle and position myself as the Medicare agent in that chapter. And it gained me hundreds and hundreds of referrals. I couldn't even count how many referrals, because in Texas, I am still known as the Medicare person throughout Nahu. I am the chairperson on the state board, and I'm doing the Tahoe Medicare Summit, which is next Tuesday. If anyone wants to come hang out with me in Fort Worth, Integrity has 5 free seats. You can see Galen if you want one of those. But we do these summits and we train in people, and I still get referrals from that. You can join the business to business board. When you've got a question, you just post it and all these agents answer you. And if you were actually to work that for your own advantage, like you said, joining in the beginning just because you want to get leads, every single week there's somebody in there saying, hey, I've got a client moving to Arizona, is going to need a new Medicare Advantage. Who can help me? And I will sit there and wait and wait. I'm like, is there any newbies that want this free piece of business out here? And a lot of times I end up responding and saying, sure, Boomer Benefits, we'll take it. So if you're not in there, you guys are missing out on a bunch of free leads. So seriously, if anyone's here and they actually join Nahu, send me a message on Facebook, tell me you joined, and I'll coach you for half an hour for free on anything you want. It is such an important organization. So please come be a part of it.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, it is, guys. Like, I joined for that. I went down, so I joined, and Paige Phillips, who is here, is very involved in Nahu. She's great, and she's got a booth back there, and I was coaching her on selling the member. She said, all these people are coming up and said they're going to join because you told them to, and I said, well, Paige, just get out your phone and sign them up right there, like, because they probably intend to, but sometimes they don't. So let's get them signed up. But it is very important, and I joined and didn't do anything, had the membership going, and I think I had talked to Dennis Mobley, who's the president of the Mississippi chapter, and I had not gone to a meeting because the meetings were like 3 hours from where we are in Tupelo. Unfortunately, we didn't have one in Tupelo, and we need to probably organize a local one, really local one. But when he started asking for speakers, Paige had been in Medicare Gurus and had linked up with me on LinkedIn, and she said, you need to have Justin come talk at the first annual meeting coming out of COVID. So they invite me down to speak, and then I met everybody, and everybody was, so nice and so awesome. And then Dennis, he's like, we want you to be on the board. And he put me as the vice president. So he was probably doing president and vice president. He's like, I need a vice president, and here's a young guy with energy. Let's go. And so I'm now the vice president of the Mississippi Association of Health Underwriters. But when they invited me to Capitol Con, I didn't know what it was, but I was blown away. That was actually a really cool event because it's basically getting together, updating stuff, celebrating, reconnecting with people around networking, but you get to sit down with congressmen. So they have it very localized. So like the Mississippi Association had set up meetings, and my buddy Chris Schottmeyer back here set up these meetings with Senator Roger Wicker and Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith and all these people, and their I can't remember, healthcare policy aides, things like that.
Yeah.
So we're sitting down with people that you have the ear, and you can build that relationship. You can get their contact info, and then you can go back and you can beat on them. And the cool thing is if you guys really see it and take an interest in a concept, you're all salespeople, and if you're good salespeople, you have to kind of treat them the same way. You got to be a very, very squeaky wheel. But I actually wanted to get people to join and then grab a bunch of Medicare agents and flood Capital Conference next year with Medicare agents.
Wouldn't that be fun?
It would be, and
Yeah.
you guys can help us do that, and that would make a big difference for Medicare agents. But they're very open to it. There was the brokerage Mike
Mm-hmm.
Smith.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to
Mike
get that
Smith?
name wrong from stage. Mike Smith's there. I met him the first time.
Yeah.
He was super nice, super cool, and Galen was there with us, and you were there, and then there were several other Medicare agents. But it's a growing Medicare population in Nahu, and everybody should be a member. My LOAs have been joining, so they're. I told them, I'm like, we try to cover all their expenses, but I'm like, you guys should join individually in Nahu. And somebody said you can get a discount with agency. I was like, no, I want Nahu to have more membership fees. They need it. They make a lot of money. They need to have a vested interest in our industry. But it also creates the opportunity for them to go and network in those events as well.
Yeah, and if there were more of us in there lobbying for the Part D OEP, we would accomplish things faster.
Yeah.
I'm part of the Capital Club, and so that's when you donate over $1,000 a year to the organization. And when you're at CapCon, at the last morning, you get to go to a breakfast with a senator, and they had Senator, I think his name was Richard Burr out of North Carolina, and he spoke, and it was right after Russia invaded Ukraine, and he said to us that he could speak freely because he'd been in office for 28 years and he wasn't running for re-election. And he was telling us all about how the Ukraine president was very likely to be killed and how awful it was, and thinking about our leaders and thinking about your vote, and then saying, and thinking about your organization's vote. And he went on to tell us how our lobbyist, John Green, is literally the best and most well-respected lobbyist in any organization. He's like the most quality person. I've given him so much of my time over the years because the initiatives that your organization brings forth are so good, not just for agents, but we can always see how much you care about the consumer. And so I just don't know why anyone want to put their money behind that. We're all working to save this industry. Medicare for all is always a real and present danger. It is a threat to our industry. It's not going to happen right away. But if you think that would be a boon to the industry, I assure you that it would not. Nahu is a course that you can sign up for online that will teach you all about what would happen to our jobs if single payer actually became a reality. And we need to be working against that every single day.
Awesome. Yeah, Nahu, join Nahu.
And
I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it is very, very important, and that's a practical takeaway. And to be honest, it's $35 a month. If you do go and join and then get on what she's talking about, where somebody posts that once a year, and if you have agents that work for you, you get a couple of them in there and just say, hey, you need to check this, every day, just grow up there.
Yep.
I mean, once a year you get a referral. You just paid for your annual membership.
Yeah.
So, and then really it's still profitable past that.
Absolutely.
So, but so Danielle, if you were starting, because your path has been really, really impressive, but even we're talking like SEO and going back, and you've tried a ton of stuff before you had the major success that you guys have had. If you were going back and starting over, is there any practical advice for somebody? And let's not even say like brand new, but a couple of years in, you've got a little bit of revenue, but you're looking to scale. Any practical, marketing or team building advice that you would give from the get-go?
So a couple of things that have worked well for us is I always learn the job duty first before I hire someone into a position in our industry. So for example, I learned how to do SEO. I learned how to do Facebook. I built our Facebook page. I got us up to 10,000 members. And when I got us to a certain point and I really knew how to do all of that and I knew all of the language and could do it myself, then I went out and I hired someone much better than me and brought her in. But I could move her into that position because I knew all the lingo and I understood what she was talking to me about. And I could work alongside her on all of that until I had the trust, and then she could run with it. And I've done that with human resources, which is, if you really want to be a big company someday, please come talk to me about that. But you do it first yourself, and then you learn all of the things, COBRA compliance, ERISA, FMLA, you learn all those things, and then you hire someone in to do it. Same thing with hiring in a salesperson or an admin. You're gonna do it yourself first and master that, and then hire that person in, and then they do it. This is the best way for you to be in charge of what's going on in your business, because it can get away from you pretty quick when it gets big. So you want to be on top of that. Another thing I really wanted to say here today is Did you know that you could make millions of dollars in this industry without being an FMO or an influencer? I see so many people in these Facebook groups and online, and they've been in the business for 5 days and they're starting their own Medicare Facebook group and they are writing maybe, they've written 5 apps and they want to recruit everyone in their downline before they've even written any business. And I see them over there in their little new GAs or whatever they are. My brother handles the side of that hierarchy, and they're fighting over the dollar override. They're going to get on this agent with this guy who recruited them first last year or whatever. Meanwhile, I'm over here closing in on 1 million followers and being the biggest social media influencers for senior citizens in the United States. You do not have to go and get a bunch of downline agents to have a huge business. You don't have to start a new Medicare Facebook group. So don't let it get away from you. Where you put the time in early in your business is in your business, working alongside your team and making sure that you perfect the processes for your sales team and your service team if you choose to build one, and then you grow that. And this is the model that Jagger has used at Medicare FAQ, Base used it as well. And we weren't out there recruiting a bunch of downline agents because you can get off into the weeds there. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that necessarily. There's agencies like yours that do it masterfully on both ends. But I just want to say, like, you can still go make millions of dollars and you don't have to be the next Justin Brock. So you can make a lot of money just writing policies yourself and keeping all of that profit instead of worrying about this little override for the few agents out there that actually write more policies than 10 per year.
Wow. You have to, and I'm glad you say it, because if I say it, people think, oh, it's just for you, so it's disingenuous because that's what you're doing. But if you really ever saw the trajectory that we had, we built an LOA team and we've grown that actually at a faster rate than the other side. And if I sat down, and I'm pretty open about it, honestly, probably more open than I should be. Like, some of you may have seen me even put like P&L screenshots up, but we have 2 separate entities and we run one entity through our marketing side that does our conference marketing fees, any of that kind of stuff that we do. And then we have our commissions side, our insurance office. And let me tell you, the compounding effect of Medicare insurance commissions dwarfs what we make on this side. We really use it for attention because it kind of organically grew in the beginning and we saw the potential. We didn't set out to do that.
Yeah.
It happened kind of like with SEO. Like, I'm assuming you didn't set out to be Boomer Benefits right from the gate. You set out to be Fort Worth SEO. You set out to be, and then it grew and you're like, hey, if I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. We didn't set out to say we want to have a conference with 384 agents. And I wasn't even a thought in the beginning. Somebody said, hey, you should start a group for Medicare. There's a lot of life insurance agent groups. And the guy that told me to do that, honestly, he didn't have the revenue that we had at that point, nowhere near now. But he's out of the business now, by the way. He had started a life insurance group and started recruiting right from the get-go, and he got eaten alive with chargebacks, people rolling up debt to him. And even when we started the group, I was still referring like all agents that would try to contract with us up until January of 2021 to other FMOs because I didn't think we had the capacity to handle it. It would have to be somebody that was like decent size for me to even take my time. And now we're trying to help more, but there's a reason that there's other FMOs here because I don't want to recruit all the agents in the country. It's not my vision. It's, I want to help ones that maybe their values and vision align. But that is how that happens. It's not a set out. So I see the same thing where people will come out and they'll be like, all right, okay, here's what Justin Brock did because I'm one of the public ones, or Chris Westfall, or, some of these people. When I started watching Chris Westfall early on and then started meeting some other people, I didn't say, I'm going to go do what they did. I said, oh, let me learn from them to write more business.
Yeah.
And you can do that. That's what we're here for. It's not to replicate a concept. And if you want to do that, I'm not hating on anybody doing it, but I'll say this about the Facebook group. Good luck, because, we're at 9,100 members in there, and it took, and there's 2 other pretty large Medicare groups already, and people will go and they'll join our group, and then they'll add everybody in the group that they can until their friends list is maxed out, start another group, and then go invite them all to the group. And I'm like, that's not how those groups grow. It took a long time. It's a lot of BS. There's a lot of crap in there. Somebody will say something goofy.
Yeah.
You'll kick them out and they get pissed off at you. And I'm like,
They're bad mouthing you somewhere else.
yeah. And then they're going to telling everybody that you're a, piece of shit that's just trying to sell everybody something. And it's like, I'm just trying to control the quality of the group. And that's a hard thing to do. You guys have a huge consumer group, by the way. You have to do that in.
Okay, we will. But I will say this about your Facebook group too. And there are several other good Facebook groups. But if you spend your whole day in the Facebook group, or if you're on
Definitely.
Facebook and you're posting the 17 Medicare conferences you're going to this year, when are you applying all of the things that you learned?
Right.
So heads down, nose in, no shiny objects. That is how we have run our business. It took forever before we ever started selling DVH or even cancer because we are so singularly focused on the one thing that we have that's working beautifully and duplicating that. And so if you're in the Facebook group all day, like do this, you can monitor on your iPhone how much screen time. You probably be surprised how much time you spend in there. And when people notice the drama, then we're all like this on our phones and you're not out there writing business. So
and everybody struggles with that, by the way, like, cause like I'm sure, like even you, like you're like, okay, I don't want to be on there, and then you see something, you're like, what's that? And then 5 minutes later, you go, why do I even care about this? It's
and
a
how did I
waste
lose
of time.
5 minutes on that?
I lost 5 minutes of my life, and that's and it's compounding. But that's a great point because when I started going to events, like it would really be one, maybe two a year, and they were spread out, and then I would go back and apply that.
Yes.
And getting on Facebook was like really when I would be on there in the evening when I'd get home and until my wife told me to get off the phone and spend time with family, or something. But that would be it was never during the day. And so I get this, guys, this is just funny. I have to say it. Like, people say, well, did you see what so-and-so said in the group? Or they'll say, I wrote something in the group and you didn't like it. And I'm like, I don't see everything in that group, guys. I don't actually not in there that I go there if I specifically need to say something or and you can utilize it for that, like crazy rare scenario questions that you answer. And by the way, there's so much in there. You can go search things too, and there's a lot of answers. But use it as a tool. Don't use it as a get lost in there. But you guys do have a consumer. You and a couple of guys in here had a consumer focused group, which may not even be a thing now because I tried it. It is so hard to get engagement from Medicare beneficiaries. We've started adding our clients to it, and every now and then they'll write something. But you guys have a pretty big consumer group.
Yeah, too. I don't know how many members. It's 25 or 26,000, something like that.
Crazy. 20. See, like I'm sitting here with 9,000 agents, and we have a whole room full of 26,000 Medicare beneficiaries in a group. And I actually, like when y'all first started that, before I even saw it, there were some people that were asking me for ideas, and I was like, I don't know, our agent group is doing pretty well. Somebody should start consumer groups. And I told people that, and they didn't do it. And then, and the people that were already doing big stuff went and did it. And so a lot of times there's these things you guys just haven't hedged into. And if you don't do it, the people that act on everything, they're in the room, they're going to act on all those concepts and scale them. So sometimes you have to be first to an idea and put effort into it. And growing that group, I know wasn't easy, especially in the beginning.
Well, yeah, because we have a staff of like 8 people. So it takes that many people to run a group like that because you'll be in there all day long answering questions. And we answer questions in there 365 days a year. So one thing I will tell you, in case you wondered what happened in the Facebook group that we run, in case you're one of the ones that has tried 17 different emails and all the stories about what kind of senior citizen you are trying to get into our group, here's what happens in the Facebook group. Medicare beneficiaries post a question, we answer the question.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
There's no secret sauce. There's no magic in there. So don't be intimidated. Go start your own Facebook group for your clients, invite them in, start answering questions. Then they're going to recommend to their friends to join your Facebook group, and you're going to answer questions. And that's pretty much what you'll do. Yeah. You might do a Facebook Live here and there on something important, but there's nothing big and secret happening in there. You're just answering questions, but it will suck your life away once it starts to grow. So just know that you will only be able to maintain that by yourself for so long, and then you will have to have staff to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the agent group, thankfully with the agent group, there's a lot of you answer each other's questions for me.
Yeah.
But if we, the consumer group was popping off like yours is, we would have to have somebody who's dedicated to answering those questions with quality stuff. And we get a little bit of that, and and I don't even check it, and I'll go in and like Steven will have answered a Medicare beneficiary or someone else would. But that, it's a funny thing that all those agent groups are popping up.
Mhm.
And when the agent groups were popping up, nobody was creating consumer groups. I'm like, and I didn't either, so I can't say anything. I keep hitting my mic, but it's just funny. Like the agent groups were blowing up, everybody saw it, and they started creating more agent groups trying to recruit. And nobody
Yeah.
said, "I'm gonna go create a consumer group and fill it full of Medicare beneficiaries," and not try to sell them everything. Just like the agent groups, if you go in there and you just try to recruit heavily all the time, it doesn't grow.
That's right.
We didn't try to sell anybody anything in our agent group for 2 years. It just sat there with just general information. But when you have that consumer group, just like you said, and I am in there. I think Kelsey let me in after we started talking more or something.
Yeah.
I was
sometimes
just
you
in there.
will.
I was just in there like, and that's all it is. It really is. It's just,
Just like you do in your group.
yeah,
You're
just
answering
like
people's
a
questions.
question, answer. They don't say, you know, call Boomer Benefits to find out. Like they don't do that. It's just general information, but it's the same way the SEO works.
Yeah.
Quality information, and we're in that thank you economy where if you put out enough, now the bar is high. You have to put out a ton of quality information now to
Mhm.
get it back. But the people that saw that several years ago really benefited from put out quality information, and people will call you for the answers.
Yeah. With any activity like that you're taking for your business, like, is this serving me or is it serving my client? And if there's some way that you can make that activity serve a client, that's the route you need to go with it. So in your Facebook group, you put out information that serves the client and they will come and participate in your group. And some of them won't. Some of them actually are just watching and lingering, and you may not even know that they're your audience, but eventually that person's out here hanging around and they're going to go and buy. And so the same thing with the Facebook groups for Medicare, be in Justin's group, pick maybe one other group that you want to be in. There's a couple of good ones. This is obviously the Medicare conference that everyone needs to be at.
It's the best
Come
group.
here, the best one, of course. Maybe pick one or two others, but
Yeah.
spend the rest of the year cultivating and growing your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and don't go and add every agent in the industry on your Facebook friends list. Like honestly, and you can talk to like Sandra about this. As Sandra Yepper talks about early on organic growth on your Facebook page. I like just so you guys know, I spent a decent amount of money early on towards on Facebook before that group ever existed, and I would go in and add friends and stuff. And I was adding my customers. I was adding, and I know some people will say, I want to separate my personal life from my business. I don't think that exists to scale. It's very difficult, because business, ask my wife, there's no separation, other than I'll turn it off for a little bit, babe. I love you. But when you have, a friends list, having a bunch of agents on it when you're brand new, probably not worthwhile. Maybe a few, thought leaders or people you respect, but then go and add. I mean, for me, and you don't have to do this, but I added clients, and they would refer me more because they saw me, and I put up a picture of my family on my Facebook profile. All my clients are liking it, and so when something would come up, I'm fresh in their mind to tag me, and I'd get a lot of referrals that way.
Yeah.
And people now are like, I'm going to add every agent so I can. And some of these are not even recruiting. They'll have 5,000 agent friends. I'll see a brand new agent and they'll have 1,100 mutual friends with me. What's different for me now, I ended up having to go in and create 2 Facebook profiles at
Yeah.
one time. But, and all that's kind of just crazy that, so I'm glad you said that. Like you can recruit, and being an FMO is great. And we need, quality FMOs and barriers to pull production together and fight for the right thing. But you don't have to do something exactly like somebody else. You don't have to be the top of Google. You don't have to be the
Yeah.
Google AdWords champion. You don't have to, sell your business for $100 million.
Pick something you're good at and then go and duplicate that.
Right. Yeah. Some people are looking way down the road and they haven't even started paving this part of it yet. So one last thing, this just came to me as I'm curious if there's any practical takeaway here. I feel like you grew like out of nowhere, and maybe you just had so much traction it already helped, but your YouTube channel grew so fast because you really weren't pouring a lot into YouTube like when I first started seeing you guys on Google doing well. And I mean, I guess it's just the quality stuff. There's no trick to it. It's just quality. I know the answer, but you did grow a great consumer driven YouTube channel like fast.
Yeah, I guess it has been pretty fast. It hasn't felt like that to me because,
And I'm comparing it to like the
yeah,
people that have maybe had one for 10 years
For
and
sure.
yours popped up, and I feel like it's doing better than theirs now. So.
yeah. And I like to always tell people because I get a lot of comments from folks at events like these that come and have watched the channel and they like the channel and give me kudos and appreciate all those things so much. But don't let that intimidate you in any way. The videos look the way they do because I have a team of 8 people. I have a video editor. I have professional lighting. They write my script. They tell me what I'm going to say. And then I edit it and we upload it and we produce these great videos. Scroll to the bottom of that YouTube channel one time. And I'll tell you, the worst videos, they're not there anymore. But there's some from the early days that are absolutely awful. In fact, I have one that maybe I'll put in, if go to Christian's conference, maybe I'll put it in there as an example.
Yeah.
Just showing you a quality, the way the work looks today and the way that it worked back then. And I remember my voice shaking. I'm shooting a video with like the window blinds behind me. The lighting was all wrong. I have green walls over here, just awful. The video content was good and we got clients from it. So that was what I like to call B- work. This is something I learned in the life coaching industry that I always apply is I go out and I create something new and my goal is to put out B- work. And I'm just getting it out there as fast as possible to get traction. And then you go from there and you get better as you go along. So don't compare yourself to some of these big agencies like ours and say, oh, it looks so great, I'll never get there. How will I ever compete? The industry's oversaturated, want. That is your sad little wubby that you carry around on your shoulder and giving you all the excuses for why you don't get ahead in this business. Go out and create a video, put it out there, it'll get some views. Then you go and create another video and you put it out there and it'll get some views. And you're over here writing business and you make a little money and then you're like, oh, I'm going to invest $300 in a ring light so I have professional lighting. And you can see the trajectory of those videos if you look at the early ones, not just from me either, but do it on Westfall's site and some of the other YouTube. Like you can go back and see that the content that we put out in the beginning is pretty crappy, actually. I should say the display was pretty crappy, but the Medicare information is what the consumer cares about. And they're connecting with you and your authenticity as a person. And this is the thing that you will see over and over again in the reviews that we get online is I felt like I knew them. And that's because we're being real people on social media. That's really where it's at. And you can do the same thing yourself. It's not that hard.
Yeah, it's true. And when I say it's fast, relative, but I know it doesn't feel fast. And that's probably part of the problem is when somebody looks at it and they were like, they're not thinking about 2000, came into the business 2004.
I got licensed in 2004, the business in 2005.
So when you think about that trajectory, a lot of things tried, a lot of
Yeah,
early
lots of
work,
failures.
compounding effort, and then maybe even the time you really started pushing into YouTube, the SEO traffic could also help. It's all compounding. Like some of it feeds one
Yeah.
another and all that.
And then you start connecting with people at events like this. Like I know something that was instrumental for me was the trip to Barbados. I think it was Cigna in 2014. And that's where I met Jagger and Beish and a bunch of, we were all little young agents back then and we were nowhere near where we are. And that was only 7 years ago, but we connect. And now sometimes when we have a question, we will throw answers out to each other or question stuff. Like I know when we first started selling DVH alongside of our Medigap, we couldn't get the agents to produce it. They didn't want to write it. So I called Jagger. I'm like, what are you doing? And he told me, try this. And it was like magic. It worked great. We grew the business. And so when you're at events like this, you can make friends that are kind of at the same level as you. And then when you try something, you can share that information with them, or you can call them and say, have you tried this? And you can make a few industry friends that you feel comfortable with. When they write a client and you lost that same lead, you can send them an email and be like, you bastard. But you can also ask good questions to them and they will give you good answers. And not everybody has to be a fierce competitor. Of course, we all compete, right? We like the competition, the friendly competition. But I think that was one of the best things for the industry is to have friends like this. So take some connections with you today, this weekend, from people that are at the same level as you and grow with those people. And you'll be able to get there a lot faster because you just have that collective group of information. And you might avoid trying some things that didn't work for one of your peers. They've already tried it. It was awful. Great. Maybe I'm going to try something else. So that's my best tip, I think, today is to come to an event like this. And that's what you want to get, what you're walking away from, not just what you heard from all the speakers, but the friendships that you take with you that are ultimately going to help your business down the line.
Perfect. Now, last question, and then we'll wrap it up. But somebody told me you said you're at 103. You guys are looking to expand. How many people are you planning on adding?
Well, David Kunkle wants to expand.
David wants to expand.
So we just knocked out the other half of the 5th floor. So our desks are full. And the business grows a lot faster than you think as you get here, because we moved into there in December of 2019. We hired 0 people in 2020 because of the pandemic. And in 2021, we filled the whole office. So we went from 30 agents to 100 in that 1 year. And so we had the right of first refusal for the rest of the 5th floor. And so that's being built out right now. It'll be 175 more desks, God help me. And then once we get all of those full, we have the right of first refusal on the 6th floor. But I'm not worrying about that.
Yeah,
right now.
that's down the
I'm gonna
road.
get through this rest of this.
So potentially
floor
another
first.
175. Look,
Yeah.
the compounding residual revenue in Medicare, you guys think it's good. That's why you're here. It's better than you think it is.
Yeah. And it gets faster the further you go along. It'll take you years and years to get to your first million. And then there comes a point where you're adding on a new $1 million every few months to the bottom line because you have so many people producing those policies. But savor those years that you're in right now. If you're in the first 5 or 6 years, like those are some of my fondest memories, like just beating the street, trying to figure it out, staying up late on Googling SEO. How am I going to learn this stuff? It's like a puzzle. I loved always putting it together. And I have such fond memories of those years, even though we were pretty dirt poor back then. There's a journey here and there's something to be learned in that journey. So don't be rushing to get, like Brandon said this morning, you're so worried about getting there that you don't look at what here is. Of course, there is going to be different. It might be more convenient. Money makes buying things convenient, but it's not necessarily better than where you are now. So, enjoy where you're at in the business today too, because those were some fun times.
You're only going to enjoy there if you,
Yeah.
experience here the right way.
Yeah, I totally agree.
People that win the lottery blow it all, right?
Yeah.
It's that journey that really makes it worth it. And that's why, Bacious has moved to the dark side. No, he's, in his AmeriLife partnership, and what they've done, he is still just as invigorated because he enjoys the journey,
He's still giving back because he enjoys the journey.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you so much for being
Thanks
here.
for having me.
Thank you so much.